Well, that's just prime.
Everyone, this is Chris from Carnage Creations, and that's Ian. He's ArrowFyre, and this is That's Just Prime, a Beast Wars podcast. Welcome back. This is episode 2. We're really excited to be here because we had a great episode 1. We got some good feedback, and we're having fun doing it. So I'm going to throw over to Ian, and he's going to introduce himself too.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Yes, my name is Ian, also known as ArrowFyre. Yeah, we had a great time, didn't we, doing this? Got some very good feedback in doing so. There doesn't actually appear to be that many other Beast Wars podcasts out there or talking of it. So I think people were quite pleased that we were taking a plunge in doing so. And again, like we said, something that we're very passionate about. And I had such a blast doing it, kind of going down the nostalgia and just fanboying out on a series that we really enjoy.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's very fun looking back at it, and being a little bit analytical is kind of fun too, because you're picking the episodes apart, but also still enjoying it just as we watch through. Now, just going to bring one thing up from last episode. We did say we would link to the 4K versions of this. We kind of forgot. That's our bad. The channel name is Transformers 4K Project, all one word. They've got every season up. So if we do forget, I'm hoping I won't. I edited a lot of videos last week, so that's on me. We will do our best to get those links in the description of the videos and whatnot, the podcasts and whatnot. Ian.
Yeah, no, that's good, and good to shout out. Do want to do a little bit of housekeeping, as we had released yesterday, as of recording today, TF Nation, Europe's largest Transformers convention, which is in August in Birmingham in the UK, has announced a particularly nice guest and a very much a Beast Wars-centric guest, with Scott McNeil making his return to UK conventions. I think the last one was 2015 or even older. It was back in the days of Auto Assembly, which was pre-TF Nation, before TF Nation came to be. I never saw or met Scott. I didn't attend the days before TF Nation. So I was really lucky last year that I went. I got to see David Kay. I had some great photos with him and got something signed in a IDW Beast Wars book. So for me to actually meet, voicing of some of my favorite Beast Wars characters this time in August when the convention is, I'm really looking forward to that. When that was announced, I absolutely marked out. So yeah, that was really cool.
Very exciting, and I'm hoping beyond hope that for some reason I can make it over there. It's a big trip, but I will do my best. I've got a few months ahead, so we'll try. I'm stuck down in Australia, so we don't get many big conventions here, and every now and then we'll get a guest. I was lucky enough in 2014 to go to TFCon in Toronto, and Gary Chalk was there, and I had a great time with Gary, drinking in the bar and getting things signed, and he's a wonderful guy. I think most of the cast are pretty good, to be honest. So yeah, very exciting news for TF Nation. If I don't get to be there, I'll be there in spirit, so I hope everyone enjoys that.
Drink a beer for you.
Oh, definitely, or a few. Okay, let's get into the episode. So we're up to episode 3 of season 1, The Web. As always, we'll start with that banger of an intro. Never gets old. We're going to cover it every single time, or maybe not, but it's one of those intros one of those shows that I find, for the most part, I never skip the intro. I just sit there and listen to it or watch it. It's just a fantastic piece of kit. So
I liken that to the old Dreamcast game, showing my age now, Crazy Taxi. I'll never forget when you started the level, you had Offspring playing All I Want. That was the song, and it became and when that started, that got me fired up to play that level, just like that Beast Wars tune got me fired up to watch the episode. So you're right, things that kind of just hit the right notes, quite literally.
Yeah, definitely. And look, it's just one of those things. It's such a nostalgia string or whatever in your mind. As soon as you hear it, it just gets you going. It's just really good. But anyway, into the episode, we sort of start out with this sprawling tracked shot, if it was a film, I guess, of it going through all this scenery, and you see some water and some grass and some hills, and it makes it all the way to the Axelon. Now, it's pretty good considering this is a 90s show, and this is like the infancy of CG animation for TV shows, other than Reboot, which was the same company, Mainframe. Other than the grass, which is kind of shite, the rest of it looks pretty good for the time. You can't compare this to now,
definitely,
but for the time, quite good. So this tracking shot gets to the Axelon, and then we start out with the Maximals discussing a new long-range comlink that Rhinox has developed that needs a field test. And of course, Cheetor is keen.
Yeah, I think just quickly on that opening shot, that was a bit of a flex, I think, when you get past the first pilot episode, when they do that sort of tracking shot through the scenery. And it's a bit like, you're showing what you can do, can't you, with this
probably
CGI
a little
in the
bit,
studio. I think you're flexing muscle. I will say when it comes up to the Axelon maybe doesn't look as detailed. So maybe they skimped on a couple of detailing on the ship and looked for the landscape panning shots, which, fine. I'll tip my hat to them for the time. But yeah, the communications, we see it a lot in probably all the Beast Wars, but certainly season 1. Communications is a big problem for Maximals and Predacons. Again, it gave them a good shackle, I think. It slowed them both down. Otherwise, you just say, oh, I see the Maximals at 10 o'clock. And that would have been it. So it was a problem right from the start, and it plagues them for the rest of the episode. And as you rightly say, Rhinox is putting up this stuff. I've got a note on it saying Rhinox for this kind of opening passage is incredibly pessimistic and just everything is downplayed. And I'm like, God,
he's a bit in this whole episode, actually.
Just like sniff some flowers, be happy, come on.
He'll get there.
Yeah, he will.
You are very right that very much a flex, probably lost some budget by the time they got to the Axelon. And it'll be interesting to, as we're aware of this, as we go through this first season specifically, if they reuse that shot any times or they do new shots. So we'll try and keep that in mind.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So obviously Cheetor's keen because he's the young brash kid, wants to do everything. And we get some Cheetorisms with Ultra Gear, and that's TM Cheetor Incorporated.
Isn't it?
Rhinox and Primal look at each other like WTF. And it's like the animators were in on the joke, like with us. They're like, yeah, we know. There's just a little cringe. So, but it's a fun little moment. There was no sound, but just the two characters, heads turned, little slight look, and we move on. There's a side profile shot of Rhinox here, and holy shit, the teeth are sharp and they stick out. I can only imagine how often he just walks around and punctures stuff with these like great big long sharp teeth. Like, I don't think rhinos have sharp teeth, but he does on that big chest piece.
You do kind of feel like, it's a good kind of war piece, doesn't it? Like kind of like, I don't know, a trophy of some sorts. But yes, considering rhinos eat grass, I don't think he needs quite such sharp hazards walking around in the Maximal ship.
No, and like we said last episode, it is a big centerpiece of the character design.
Yeah.
But particularly when they had that close-up shot on that side profile, and if you would imagine he was a 6-foot person, they were like sticking out 6 inches from his chest. I was like, yeah, okay, that's pretty good armor plating. Primal gives his orders. Techno jargon is back. Completely arbitrary words. Head away from the base at Vector Omega and check in every 10 microquads. So we're right.
There's microquads. We were proper going there, weren't we? Because I must admit, now we've been doing these podcasts and listening back to it, I'm noticing it more, and it's like, oh no, audio receptors.
It's real thick, isn't it?
I'm going to start talking like this in day-to-day life, and that's not good.
The Twitter posts will be weird techno jargon. They do improve a little bit, and the terminology gets a little bit more consistent as the series goes on, where they start talking about like distances and time a little bit. As you've watched it a few times, you start to pick up, oh, okay, that's fairly consistent, even if it is a little arbitrary. So it's, we just like to pick it up. It's fairly funny. So there's some really nice animation on the close-ups on the heads. Primal, specifically with the eyes, you can see the kind of like in TF1, you see the pupils move in the glow of the eye, and it gives some direction to where they're looking and a little bit of emotion to the somewhat stoic face. Even though his mouth moves a little bit, the rest is fairly rigid. So the characters' faces are very well animated.
I think this is why they're quite happy to do the close-up shots, because they didn't have to get things like a ship in the background or multiple characters moving on screen and turning heads. If you can do a zoomed-in headshot, it gives you less to do, and then you can work on more, can't you? Less being more, and particularly in the early episodes when the budget was a bit thinner, that only helped.
Yeah, absolutely. And because they've got a small cast, like we said before, they can really dial in the designs on these characters. And again, like back to that initial shot, the landscapes in that are fairly basic basic and repetitive. So they get a lot of detail on the characters, which is what we want to watch anyway. We're not there to see the scenery. So Cheetor runs off and he's told to return immediately if he sees any Preds. So yeah, right, like he's going to do that. This is Cheetor. Rhinox gives this knowing little, like that's going to happen. And Primal has a little giggle and sort of says, yeah, he'll do fine. Again, just being the positive leader, but we know what's going to happen without even,
even by episode 3, we know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So next we see Scorponok digging a bunch of rubble away from an unknown bit of tech. He sort of complains about getting it out, but dude, you've been throwing rocks around for the past couple of seconds. Just keep doing the same thing. Like he acts like it's the heaviest thing in the world. We just literally see him like with his little pincers throwing rocks around. And then he's complaining. So anyway, he stands back, shoots a missile at it, blows it up, and pulls the thing out.
Which I kind of feel this is a mega cannon that he finds. It's believed to be from the dark side. So okay, it's got to have some kind of explosives. Would you fire a gun at a gun? That seems a bit very Scorponok in its way.
It's not a laser
I'll
blast.
Fire missiles.
Yeah, it's
I suppose.
a full missile.
It might not be gunpowder. Yeah, I get it, but it's like. It just seems a very Scorponok thing to do. This thing is under rubble that has destructive capabilities. I'm going to fire a missile at it. He's not the sharpest. And also we go on, maybe jumping a gun a little bit here, no pun intended. We find out that Scorponok is second in command.
Yeah, and very smugly too. Smug mood.
Yeah. But it's like, who knew? And do you know what? He does kind of nothing in the course of the series to prove he's second in command other than giving Waspinator and Tarantulas and maybe Pterosaur some orders. But other than that, you don't kind of hear Megatron saying, I leave this to you. He's almost like self-appointed.
Yeah, and him and his stupid little robotic scorpion eyebrows don't really do much either. He's pretty pathetic and he's not real competent, the old Scorponok. So, but anyway, Cheetor hears the big bang in the distance, sends a comms into base and is told not to pursue, obviously, which he ignores because it's Cheetor. He can't help himself. So he goes and finds Scorponok, who he pulls a gun on. His weird gut gun that looks like a bit of brains or intestines or whatever. It's an odd design choice, but it looks cool, kind of, in a weird way. But he pins Scorponok down. Scorponok's chattering his little claws and sort of trying to figure out what devious plan he can work out while he's got a gun pointed at him.
Using all 5 brain cells at this point.
5.5 maybe. Cheetor gets a little overconfident, blindsided by Tarantulas. Scorponok takes the opportunity with the distraction, missile to Cheetor, and lights out.
Now, it's funny at this point, like Tarantulas being very much his own character, but I do think this is, and we'll get into this a bit more as the episode progresses, but this is a bit of a slower paced Tarantulas. Again, this is possibly down to the writers not fleshing out the characters so much. Because when you look at Tarantulas in season 2, he's much more on his own 2 feet. This is feeling like a playing by the rules Tarantulas almost. He's still devious and hiding in the shadows as his character is, but he's not absolutely devious as he is in, say, latter seasons. But even though Cheetor spots him and starts firing, I do love the sound of Cheetor's gun, even if it's a weird gun.
Yeah, that charge, pulsy sort of
pulse noises,
and it's got that like bit of echo to it. It is very cool. Actually, if I remember while I'm editing this, and I will because I'll hear what I'm saying right now, funny enough, I will try and clip that little bit of episode and put it in just so people can hear that sound. It's just a nice sound.
But you know, it's quite good that, again, most of the characters, I think they all have individual sounds for their weapons. So
somewhat, yeah.
Primal's arm cannons, Dinobot's lasers, Trap's
another
gun,
good sound.
Tarantulas' machine gun, spider arm. They all have distinctive noise, so you can tell who's firing. Whereas you went back to G1, other than going away from maybe the null rays of the Seekers that have very definitive sounds, everyone else just sounded like generic laser firing, didn't they?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, and you bring up Dinobots there. We won't digress too much, but Dinobots charge up and then release of energy is like
very
top
cool.
tier. Yeah. One funny thing with Cheetor, just when he gets to Scorponok, he Cheetor maximize, and in beast mode he has the Comtech on his front beast mode leg. And when he transforms, those legs go onto his back, and his robot mode arms fold out from the chest of his cheetah mode. So they're not connected at all. They're not a shared part on the toy, on the animation at all. And somehow the comms end up on his other arm. So fair enough. We'll ignore that.
BS transformations, we're back to BS transformations.
Oh yeah, there's one coming. Tarantulas lets Scorponok know that Primal's inbound. This is where Scorponok decides to bravely tell us that he's second in command and that Tarantulas should stay and he'll bugger off, whatever. But all of a sudden, Tarantulas is nowhere to be found, and Scorponok's left with Primal. So he's not too happy about that. So Primal's flying in. He starts scanning for Cheetor, and comms are down. So it's a visual only. Cool iris animation on Primal. It zooms in. You get the little iris, Stargate sort of iris thing going on, and some RoboCop style targeting to find where Cheetor is, which is really cool. And then he finds Cheetor on the ground, big hole in the chest, not looking good.
Pretty big hole, yeah.
Yeah, like nasty. Optics fade out and screen goes black. So dun dun dun. There was probably an ad break back in the day, and you're worried about Cheetor.
It's a good natural break, but yeah, he's taken a fair bit of punishment from Scorponok's rocket, which he gets blindsided, but yeah, he looks pretty worse for wear at this point, which then leads to Primal. We don't see it, but we believe that he flies Cheetor back to the Axelon and puts him in the CR chamber to recover.
Which during this time we get this dream sequence or flashback, we don't know at the time, of Cybertron, which is the first time we see any form of Cybertron in Beast Wars. Looks very cool. It's very techno city, lots of lights, big
very
buildings.
Tron, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's like that buildings on the roof type thing, buildings on the floor, like it's everywhere. And it's got that sort of haze to it, like it is sort of a dream sequence opposed to a flashback, which you soon figure it out because you see the Preds, they're all on this platform. There's a giant Cheetor having a laugh up in the sky. The Preds start shooting at him. Next thing, Cheetor's lazing around on a pillar, missing all the shots, fires back, takes them all out, thinking this is having a great time. Suddenly, Tarantulas and Scorponok appear again, and this is some PTSD or whatever's going on in his brain.
Yep.
And they sort of blow him up, and suddenly he awakens with Primal's face in his face back at the Axelon, as you say.
That is, you've hit the nail on the head there with PTSD, because that's exactly what it is. So, I mean, the big Easter egg, and I remember watching this when it first aired, is that you see it Cybertron, but to give that added definition that it's Cybertron, you see Starscream flying through in his Earth jet mode. And I remember watching it as a kid, like, was that Starscream? Of course, with the power of flicking back on YouTube, you can quite clearly see it is a white, blue, fin-tailed and red highlighted jet with a Decepticon symbol on it. And I thought...
And a nice 4K upscale on a HD TV opposed to an old tube telly and 420p or whatever. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So,
not
there is
a
funny spot in that dream sequence after he shoots Megatron. Megatron's head flies into a wall, and all his little teeth pop out of his face.
Teeth fall out in his eyes.
It slides down.
But even though you kind of see that Cheetor's like having this kind of fever dream, and he's taking out Pterosaur, Waspinator, and Megatron, and he's having a great time. Oh, they never learn. And then Tarantulas is there haunting him. You see at the very end of the dream a bit of foreboding for later in the episode that Rat Trap slices at him with a blade, and that causes Cheetor to wake up. Now, whilst it is a bit of foreboding for what comes later, is this just a case of Transformers getting deja vu? Is it a case of they're just kind of...
It could be, yeah.
They're experiencing the future because do Transformers dream? Well, apparently they do. But that's not uncommon, is it? In all the Beast Wars, to start having
they're
very
sentient beings,
mammal-like
so their
tendencies.
brains should work like any other sentience. They're not programmed. They have an active learning brain like anything else. So it's quite possible. And to be fair, look, it could be happenstance or coincidence, but the show is fairly well written. I wouldn't be surprised if they thought it out. So yeah, look,
agreed.
It is what it is. We won't know unless we ask Larry DiTilio or someone that we can get on here at some point. But he wakes up on the Axelon, and of course Rat Trap starts taking the piss as usual. During their debrief, Rat Trap's eating an apple and it's blue, and also Rat Trap's eating an apple. So I don't know.
I mean, this is where we kind of find that Rat Trap does spend most of his time in season 1 in beast mode, and he's very much, they make him doing very rat-like things. So eating garbage is kind of his
Apple cores.
go-to, and Apple cores that look like he just got them out of a rubbish bin.
Yeah, maybe it was moldy.
You can believe it.
The kids start arguing as usual, being Rat Trap and Cheetor. The big boy puts his foot down and says he's going to call in Dinobot because he's got knowledge of the Predacon base, which they're not real keen on, but, it's the boss's orders type thing. Cheetor cracks it and runs off. Rat Trap's like, he's not dumb enough to disobey Primal's orders again. And then we get another funny Rhinox thing, and he just gives him the and Rat Trap's like, shit, essentially. And it's like, I better go find him then. Like, it's very well. The interactions between the very quippy Rat Trap and the stoic, but sometimes quite deadpan funny Rhinox are great.
They are quite good, yeah. Because even like with Primal bites at Rat Trap's quips quite a lot. There's a different dynamic between Rat Trap and Rhinox. There's definitely a little bit more respect, and I don't think Rat Trap tries quite so hard to antagonize Rhinox because he probably knows it just doesn't work. But going back to the big bot giving Cheetor, he gives him quite a dressing down because when the kids, as you say, start arguing, he's like, you back off now. He's very stern with him, and he's like, we're in a war for survival, you treating it like a game. And this is where you see this, I think Gary Chalk summed it up with one of his TFCon interviews, saying that he wanted to make him very warm-blooded. And I thought that came across like this was Primal's first gig, and he's trying to stay on mission, trying to stay on point, and not the first time, and it won't be the last time, and he kind of loses his rag with Cheetor.
Yeah, he's a real character. He's not this stoic robot. He's not too over the top one way or the other. He plays him like a real person, I suppose, in a leadership role.
An mammal.
Trying to manage these different personalities and characters. And back to what you said about Rhinox and Rat Trap, it's almost like they're old war buddies, or all, they sort of know how to push each other's buttons, but also know how far to take it. And there's that mutual respect there. So it's quite fun. And we're early days in the 3 seasons, ignoring Beast Machines, and this develops quite a lot. It's quite fun to watch. So moving on, we get to see the squad over at the Pred base putting on this mega cannon, trying to install it. During this time, Cheetor is trying to sneak up on the base, and he gets double snuck up on, I guess, by Tarantulas, and disappears he goes.
With his toy hook from the original toy, which we will cover in a toy episode in a not too distant future, but I thought that was quite cool that we saw that. I'm like, oh no, that looks familiar from your toy. And I do love that things like missiles and like toy hooks or harpoons or whatever, they've all got branding on. They've all got a Predacon logo on. They're very keen about brand recognition.
It's very toy-centric, isn't it? And I mean, there is characters in season 1 that are quite accurate to the toys, at the time, specifically now to Masterpiece, but Primal and Megatron are very good. There's a few designs there that are great. Season 2, it takes it to another level, which we'll get to. But yes, some of the weapons and the missiles and that look very toy-centric, which is quite fun.
Agreed.
Camera pans down into Tarantulas' lair, and Cheetor is stuck on the titular web. I'll get that word out without saying something weird. A stasis web that is draining Cheetor.
So yeah, we see Cheetor in suspension in a web. He tries to maximize early on, realize he can't, and Tarantulas is just laughing, taking it all in. He's even though he's only got an up-down button on his control module, it doesn't look very high tech. He begins to torture him, and it's draining the energy from him, or it's draining some energy. Cheetor
makes a point that he doesn't have blood. He's only got like trans fluid or whatever jargon he uses, mechanical stuff.
I thought that was quite good actually, because that really showed. And whilst this is a Cheetor spotlight episode, it is. I actually think this episode does more for Tarantulas than it does for Cheetor. You got this line that I'll never forget, which is, this is a dumb plan, Webface. I don't have any real blood, just mech fluid. And Tarantulas comes back with, oh, my filters will adjust. It's the act I enjoy more than any
Exactly, that's what I was about to say.
It's like, you don't need to eat this guy. You're just doing it for perverse pleasure. And but that sums up Tarantulas' character perfectly, considering, and I'm getting ahead of myself for the toy episode that we'll eventually do, his toy bio depicts him as a ninja, which is just not comes across at all in season 1 cartoon. He's the mad, twisted, perverse scientist.
Yeah, very sick and twisted. Back at the Axelon, we've got Dinobot who wants a frontal assault. Dinobot is very bloodthirsty and out for the Preds early in these early episodes. He just wants to go and attack all the time. It does get better, but they ride him very vengeful at this sort of start of the season.
Does the day end in Y? Does he want to do a frontal assault? Yes, he does. It's just like
Exactly.
This is like, again, maybe this is because I kind of have this as a note for a few episodes in the early season. Dinobot in the first few seasons joining the Maximals is incredibly impatient. He really is kind of questioning his choice to join the Maximals. It's like, no, destroy them. It says every day we need to attack. We need war all the time, and he's just not buying into the slow and steady.
I've got a note here that says Rhino. Come on, man. Rhinox covers for the kids, and then straight afterwards I wrote, and Dinobot is an angry dino. It's just like, that's pretty much the truth of it.
About the size of it. Yeah, about the size of it.
Rat Trap is off trying to find Cheetah at this point. He's got a good sense of smell being a rat, which again tying into that whole being in the rat mode a lot. He sniffs out Cheetah, pops into the lair, sneaks up on Tarantulas, and they have a little bit of a fight. Now, they both transform at this point, and Rat Trap has a wonderful design, and it makes me really pumped for the MPG that's coming out, even though it's got a really big backpack. But from the front, the size and the proportions of the body seem to be dead on from the animation to the new toy. So again, talking toys, but amazing, and I love that design.
Yeah, and I think when you see Tarantulas transform as well, as they both square off, they've got very, I used this in the pilot episode as well, like believable, sensible transformations, like for the Masterpiece figure that's going to come out for Rat Trap. As we say, it kind of opens from the chest and then goes to his back, and all of his governors fall out from the center, which the transformation in the show largely does as well. Where it comes to Tarantulas, it's kind of like his whole torso from his abdomen folds upwards like a car bonnet, and then everything folds out from the side.
Exactly.
So when you consider the posture they're in Beast Mode to how they go in, like Rat Trap goes from 4 legs standing up to a biped, makes sense. Similar with Tarantulas going from 8 legs on the floor, flopping up, and then chest going open and all of his pincer claws come out. It's very believable for the characters they're representing.
Yeah, and to be fair with Rat Trap, his animation model, the rat is on his back. It's not like they fake it. It unfolds and goes onto his back. His little feet are there, his tail's back there, and the botmo sort of spews from the inside. Another really cool thing with Rat Trap's design is his head is kind of just a shell with this red glow inside of it. His eyes, his mouth, and all that are this red glow. And certain angles you see that frame of the outside of his face and his head with the glow coming out. Very cool design, and the toy looks like it's pulling that off too, which is really cool.
I mean, that is very good, because it's the same with Cheetor. He's got the same, that kind of like, you notice it, and Tigertron later when he comes into the show, that when they do the gasping or eyes wide and mouth open like a kind of look, you see that red for Rat Trap absolutely fill up, and that's where it can look very dead because there's no pupils, there's no characteristics, but it doesn't, because the eyebrows and cheeks and mouth are doing the expressions. But yeah, that red backlight, or yellow in Cheetor's case, sells it really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rat Trap and Tarantulas are trading off a little bit. Rat Trap sort of pulls a runner to regroup, and Tarantulas pulls a predator move on him and gets the thermal imaging going, finds Rat Trap, gets him, sort of bests him for a moment.
Tell me you live in the 90s without telling me you live in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And well, didn't Peter Cullen do the predator sound anyway? So we've got a tie in there.
Yeah, well, there you are.
We get a little sign of some later stuff with Rat Trap where we find out that he's an explosive expert, his demolition charges and whatnot. And he's got a really cool gimmick where he pops open the forearm and pulls out these various gadgets and things. At this time, he puts one on a wall to trick Tarantulas. It turns out it's a dummy, but it's at a point where Rat Trap can get one up on Tarantulas. So Rat Trap's bested Tarantulas, and he attempts to release Cheetor, but he's forgotten his pin number. So he releases Spots via a more rudimentary process. Like we said before, he uses the knife, cuts the web, and gets Cheetor free. But Tarantulas decides he's going to get up from the rubble, one leg and all, and fires a missile. Big multi-shot action, jumping from the explosion, like the diving, slow-mo, the whole deal. It's like literally like there was 3 cameras, slow-mo. It's quite a fun. One of the shots, they're like super extended, like Superman pose. It's very funny.
I think we've seen where that budget from the very sketchy looking Axelon at the early part of the episode went all towards the end on that explosion. They
this
blew
one
the
Michael
show's budget.
Bay-esque action shot.
But going back to tarantulas, one thing that I forgot, because yeah, you're right. There's the predator kind of scene. Rat Trap tricks tarantulas for the old switcheroo and everything. They have this Mexican standoff, and Rat Trap does a very cool thing. He like ducks down and shoots from underneath. And I remember watching that as a kid, just thinking he got a shot on him, and didn't realize he actually clean blows off Tarantulas' leg in a very Star Wars-esque limb decapitation. And I was like, oh, we're doing like, he's not just like wounded, like, my leg. It's like, oh, your leg's gone now, mate. That's gone.
Definitely. No, it was a cool little sequence, actually, that whole fight. And then just to cap it off with this sort of over the top action trope, as it is, very much took it out of the books of a 90s action film there.
But this is Tarantulas' first lair, but not the first one that gets blown up. He seems to have bad run of luck with lairs, doesn't he? Mind you, this one was entirely his own fault.
Definitely.
But yeah, but going back as well to the blade, as you mentioned, that cuts down Cheetor from the web. We don't see Rat Trap use this blade ever again. But of course, this is the foreboding dream that Cheetor had. Like that's when he saw Rat Trap coming at him with a knife. But yeah, Rat Trap has a knife because
it's just
have a knife.
Just a tool of convenience in that particular scene. It just happens to have it in his utility belt that we don't see either. So back at the base once again, Rat Trap covers for Cheetor because really he sort of looks like he's trying to be noble, but he pulls Cheetor aside in the hallway behind the main command room and says, hey, I'm doing this because I don't want my ass chewed out as well. Don't do it again type thing. So he's like, I'll cover for you, but don't be a dick. And
it's tough love, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And Primal sort of takes it on face value and says, yeah, okay, fair enough. And Rhinox is sitting there having a bit of a giggle because he knows what's going on. And Cheetor is thankful because he knows Rat Trap still saved his hide. And that's pretty much the end of the episode.
You do see Primal having a bit of humility at this point. He apologizes for his earlier going. And this is where I feel you see a better leader in Primal than anything else. You can't imagine an Optimus Prime apologizing. If you go back to the pilot, Mauler Meets the Eye, when he almost shouts at Sideswipe when he doesn't want to give him his jetpack. When they go after the Decepticons, he's like, give me a jetpack. No! He doesn't say later on in the episode, sorry for shouting at you, Sideswipe. Thank you very much for giving me your jetpack. So Primal at least goes, I'm sorry, Cheetor. I shouldn't have been so harsh. He kind of has that, but at least Primal has that humility at that point, and it just kind of shows what type of leader he can be.
Yeah, definitely. Look, overall, the episode was pretty fun. Like you say, it was like a spotlight on Cheetor, but in some ways there was some nice side spotlight on Tarantula, setting him up as this weaselly, nasty, mad scientist scheming, lots of descriptive words you can use for him, but he's a nutcase and he's evil and he's manipulating. And we get a good taste of that, with, like you said, with that line where he's like, well, I can change my taste if I need,
Yeah, I feel it's a very reboot-esque episode as well. I think when you have things like the flow of the episode, like that spanning camera shot, it is very reboot-like. I can imagine panning through the city of Mainframe, going to see Bob and Megabytes and all the other characters. It flows a very similar way, and I thought that, Megabytes is a brilliant villain. And before we even get onto Hexadecimal, I think it is. It's not my favorite episode.
No, but it's not bad.
I watched it. It's not bad, no, by all means. But I think it's showing the naivety of Cheetor. When even by the end of the episode, you don't feel like he's necessarily learned a lesson. You just feel that Rat Trap's bailed him out. Which is, I like the little fight scene with Tarantulas and Rat Trap. I like that kind of like almost Mexican standoff. I thought that was quite cool. But it shows more of Tarantulas, like you say, than for me than it does a Cheetor. Even though I think it's meant to be a Cheetor spotlight episode.
Yeah, and look, I wouldn't say it's growing pains, but it's only the third episode into a fairly long season in the scheme of things. So they're still figuring things out a little bit. The other thing with Cheetor is you need to understand that over the 3 seasons, and it's not spoiling anything, but he's very much a child in the first season. He's like a preteen, a bit calmer, sort of getting his feet in the second season, and then he's a full-blown teenager with puberty in the third season. And it's not till Beast Machines that he's an adult. You will see this, and it is a very consistent arc. Though it is annoying sometimes, they don't drop the ball with it. The character is consistent. So whether you like him or not, at least it's true the whole way through the season. But as you say, this is not my favorite episode or anything, but it's good. It shows the two characters of Tarantulas and Cheetor. There's some fun stuff with Rhinox and Rat Trap. You're starting to see some of their characters. So overall, I think it was good enough.
I think this is what they tried to do. You didn't really have throwaway throwaway episodes as such, even though it could feel like that. This was all about growing the characters as much as possible, giving Cheetor that path on his journey. Whilst he could be insufferable, when you look at, as I said when we reviewed the pilot episode, when you look at an A to B to Cheetor, he has a real great progression that they didn't drop the ball throughout, like you say. And it just kind of, it was a necessary episode, even if it wasn't my favorite. It's a necessary episode for Cheetor's development.
Yeah, and look, I agree. There's no what you would call filler episodes in Beast Wars. There are episodes that aren't particularly episodic, where it's like it's linked into the main season. You know, it's not like a great big Doctor Who season that arcs over 4 different doctors and there's tiebacks everywhere. There are episodes that are standalone, but they have character development or they'll have something of interest. It just might not be towards the main arc of that season. And there are arcs in the seasons, believe us, you'll notice soon enough. Like this episode was very much just a character development episode.
Agreed. Okay, well, that was our roundup of episode 3, The Web. Really good to do that with you, Chris. So let's tell everyone where we can be found with our podcast. So we are now on Spotify. We are on Amazon Podcasts or Amazon Music, be under the podcast section. We are on Apple Podcasts and Podbean as well. And given how the pilot's episode that we reviewed has been received, people will find us across multiple platforms on there. You'll also find us on social medias. We have Blue Sky accounts, we have X, Twitter accounts, but also we have recently set up a Facebook page. You are welcome to join and you'll find any kind of links to the direct episodes from there.
For the most part, if you put That's Just Prime, a Beast Wars podcast on any of those, you will find us. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the exact same handle for everything at this stage, but if you put that, if you type that whole thing in, it will pop up. So you'll find us there. I'm Chris Carnage on Blue Sky. On X, I'm Chris Carnage _, which is the same as my Instagram, all that. You'll find me. It's either a wrestling picture or it's my Dino Bob picture, so you'll find us. Ian, what's yours?
I'm pretty cut and dry in as much as I'm ArrowFyre. So that's fire with a Y, and that is going to be one singular name apart from Instagram where I'm ArrowFyre _archives because I couldn't get ArrowFyre. But you'll find me across that, particularly on YouTube, most other platforms as well. But I am on Facebook, I am on X, and I am on Blue Sky.
You'll pretty much find us anywhere. If you're unsure, just drop us a line where you do find us and we'll shoot you a message or whatever. If you've got any feedback for us, feel free to send us a tweet or whatever they call it on Blue Sky or a message on Facebook, any of those things. We're really happy for feedback. Positive, not so much negative, but constructive would be nice. But yeah, give us some feedback. Please follow us on those platforms. On Podbean, we're hosted on Podbean, obviously. Follow us on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're using. We can see that. It helps us see our analytics. And then just let us know what you think and let us know any thoughts. What do you want to hear about? Episodes that you would like to see us do or hear us do, I should say. There will be other things other than just the little episodic reviews. Like we said, toy things, interviews, whatever we can do. It's early days, but we've got lots planned. It's very exciting.
Yeah, and agreed. And I just want to say thank you to all of the feedback we've been receiving for the first episode. It's been very nice getting the messages saying that it's been really cool and people have been following. And that's just really constructive for the first episode. So thank you very much to everyone who's taken the time to say thank you.
Very much. So this was our second episode of the podcast, but it was episode 3 of Beast Wars, The Web. So thanks for listening and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's just prime.